I didn't see you there. Are you here for my Keystone project? Oh, that's great. Follow me. Well, it all started when my good friend Dustin Wales asked me to make a custom e-bike for him. I have a deep passion for all vehicles, especially custom ones. So, when presented with the idea to build a custom e-bike and call it my Keystone, that was just way too good of an opportunity to pass up. So the popular pedal bicycle came around in the 1860s, but since then they have evolved immensely, and the current technological evolution of the bicycle is the e-bike. E-bikes occupy a space somewhere between a normal acoustic bicycle and something like a Vespa. The e-bike is powered by an electric motor that's placed right in front of the pedals, and it provides an electric assist from right here to the rider. In basic terms, this makes the rider feel a little bit like a superhero, which is pretty cool. There are many variants of these e-bikes, from normal commuters or cargo bikes to full suspension mountain bikes. Per the request of my client, I built a hardtail mountain bike that would function equally well as a commuter and a cargo bike, but ride trails like anything else. This idea for the functionality and aesthetic of the bike came from the recent trend of overland vehicles. These are cars and trucks that are designed to be daily drivers, but also be able to conquer any off-road endeavor. So the first step in building a bike frame was learning how to build one. After a brief search, I discovered that Paul Brody, an OG mountain bike Hall of Fame frame builder, lived within driving distance of me. So I reached out to Paul, and he agreed to help me build my bike. With Paul's help, I chose Chromoly steel for my frame. Chromoly is an alloy steel that is preferred by steel frame builders for its excellent strength-to-weight ratio. This thin wall thickness, paired with a really strong material in the tubing, allows for a very strong frame that is also compliant in the ride, so the frame is actually can have a little bit of flex in it, which makes the ride a little bit smoother. The first consideration I had when designing the bike was that it needed to fit the customer. So I knew that Dustin currently rode a Kona Hanzo, which is also a hardtail mountain bike, and he really liked the fit and style and ride of this bike. So I decided to check it out online, and it turns out that bike companies like to share their geometry, so I was able to borrow certain dimensions from the bike, like the reach, which is basically your arm's reach from when you're sitting on the bike to the handlebars, and the seat tube angle and the seat tube height. So I knew that when Dustin was sitting on the bike, he would be comfortable. But I also knew that he wanted something that was a little bit more aggressive than the Kona Hanzo. So I searched around and found the Chromag Arcturian. The Chromag is essentially what I just described, a similar hardtail mountain bike, but with a more slack head tube angle, which is this dimension right here, which allows it to go down hills a lot easier. The actual head tube angle is 64 degrees, which on any bike is considered slack. So once I had these key dimensions, the rest of the frame kind of fell into place. I actually ended up working with Chromag a little bit. They helped provide me with a few key frame pieces, such as the dropouts, which are what the axle seats through in the back of the frame, the derailleur hanger, the axle, and a rear brake mount. They also provided me with the seat tube, which was especially important because it had the exact right inner diameter to fit the dropper posts that I wanted. So Chromag deserves a shout out for being a super cool local bike company who's willing to help me out and answer every one of my little questions. Their Arcturian slack head tube angle, which I used, essentially makes the bike easier to ride downhill because it places the front wheel further out front and decreases the relative angle to the slope you're riding on. Also, as a commuter bike, the slack head tube angle will make it feel like a pretty cool cruiser. Another key piece of geometry that I struggled with in this bike was the rear chainstays. These guys. And what I struggled with was their length. So I had a pretty big tire on the back of this bike, and I had to deal with the added distance from the electric motor mount. So this added about 4 centimeters onto the chainstay length, which I couldn't get rid of. From there, I had to make sure that the rear chainstays would clear the extra width of the tire that I was working with. So this part is the widest part of the chainstay, and I needed that to be as close to my motor mount as possible while still clearing the tire. So after struggling with this for a while, I ended up with a 470 millimeter rear chainstay length, which is long for current e-bikes, but isn't entirely out of the picture. This being an e-bike, I wasn't overly concerned with weight, but more concerned with durability and performance and the parts being able to handle the added torque of the electric motor. First, with the help of Zero Motorcycles, I was able to source a Bosch Gen 4 speed variant motor and 2 625 watt-hour batteries, adding up to a whopping 1,250 watt-hour capacity e-bike. Another big advantage of the Bosch system is that it's serviceable at most local bike shops. So once I handed this bike off to Dustin, I would feel good about him being able to solve a problem with it if the drivetrain had an issue. And also the 1,250 watt-hour capacity of the bike was nearly double that of a typical e-bike, which ranges from 500 to 700 watt-hours. So what this meant is that I could really capture the functionality of an overland vehicle and extend the range of this bike to a minimum of about 80 kilometers. The next big piece was the drivetrain. This was an easier decision because there's really only one good option on the market, which is the SRAM EX1 drivetrain, which is designed specifically for e-bikes. So the actual cassette is designed to handle a lot more torque, be more durable, and shift under power. Another defining factor of this bike was the wheel size. So originally Dustin wanted a fat bike, which means a tire size with 3.8 to 5 inches of width. However, fat tires add a lot of extra weight and are a little bit harder to maneuver. So what this means is a reduction in range and riding capability of the bike. I wanted to fit as big of a tire as I could while still having it fit with a modern suspension fork and have decent rolling speed and efficiency. I went with a 29-inch wheel by 2.8-inch width tire. This allowed me to keep some of the advantages of a fat bike tire, such as traction and float and cushion, while also gaining the efficiency, maneuverability, and precision of a normal mountain bike tire. Now, at the time of this presentation, I don't actually have a finished product. The final issue that I've struggled with in this project is creating a custom double barrel down tube to house the batteries internally in the frame. One of the big things with this was that nobody's done it before, which is a cool factor, but means that I didn't have anything to go on in terms of ideas. It was also really difficult to find a fabricator willing to work with me to solve issues such as having a down tube where you could insert the batteries into it and maintain torsional rigidity. But this was not entirely unexpected. From the get-go, most things in this project that seemed like they might have a short timeline ended up taking ages. From sourcing all the parts myself to having to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic at the same time, every piece of this project has taken longer than I anticipated. Now that I have all my supply lines dialed, the next model should come to fruition quite a bit faster, and I'm taking orders. The real final word on this is, yes, it's my project, but I did not do it on my own. I had help from so many different people. I would like to thank Sam Paschal and Jim Callahan and Steve Salyer at Zero Motors for pushing me through the Bosch corporate chain to where I could get the pieces that I needed and answering all my little questions along the way. I'd like to thank Zach at Bosch for hooking me up with a sweet deal on an electric drivetrain and giving me all the information I could possibly need to integrate it into the bike. I would like to thank my friends and family for supporting me and being enthusiastic about my project along the way. I'd like to thank my mentor, Andrew Hamilton, for helping me edit my Keystone paper and help produce a polished product. I'd like to thank my roommate, Will Morris, for helping me choose all of the componentry for the bike and film this presentation. I'd like to thank Paul Brody for helping me with designing and building the frame and building the frame for me. I'd like to thank Corsa Cycles for helping me source all of the individual componentry and giving me sweet deals along the way. And I'd like to thank Roy Roman and Roman Metalworks for being the fabricator that made me feel like I finally struck gold to create my custom down tube and helping me work out the little kinks and solve all the little issues that went into that custom piece. And I'd like to thank Molly Welsh, my Keystone tutor, for helping me push it through to the end. Yeah, I think that's good.